Ben here, Vapor RC. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. In this video, we're just going to look over the Punisher 4. I'm going to tell you what I think is good about it, what I think can be improved about it, and my overall thoughts on this 4S basher from Corally. I think the first thing we need to address is the elephant in the room. Should this have been a short wheelbase 6S basher? It's a really hard question to answer, and I'm half of me wants to say yes, absolutely, because I would have still bought this. I would have still definitely got it, and it would have really appealed to me having a short wheelbase 6S basher, especially with this body. But the other half that says to me is it would have put the price up. This is aimed, I would say, at people newish into the hobby, or people who don't want to go 6S straight away and they want something a bit tamer. So it's a very hard one. But yeah, I would definitely, if Corally brought this out in a 6S, even a long wheelbase, you know, like a low slung truggy, or a 6S short wheelbase stunt truck, which I think this would be awesome, then yeah, I think that would be absolutely great. I know M-Line, who are an independent company, but they work a little bit with Corally and they bring out their own cars. They have actually brought out their own version of the Punisher, and it's not called Punisher 4, it's not called Punisher 6, it's just called the Punisher. It's an M-Line, I presume, I'm pretty certain it is a 6S. It's got slightly longer body on it, and that looks absolutely awesome. It's like proper tuned by M-Line. I think they're a German company. If I can find a link to their website or to their Facebook or something like that, I'll put it down in the description. So let's start off with what I think, and I found the negatives about this car, or what I feel could be improved. And again, this is going to be very subjective. Everybody's got their own opinions. I think Corally should have 100% put a sliding motor mount in this. I know why they've gone for what they did, because it's aimed at beginners to intermediates and it's easy to get your mesh. But I've heard some people having issues with third-party pinions not fitting right. I mean, I'm using a third-party pinion 15 tooth and the mesh is absolutely fine. So I'm not sure about that. But for me, a sliding motor mount would be a lot better. Obviously, I put the 6S one in. I was speaking to Chris, shout out to Chris from a Big CRC. I'm sure you know his channel anyway. If you don't, check his channel out. I know that he was saying the Skeeter sliding motor mount will fit in here. It's a direct fit, so you won't have to cut out this little bit here. The only issue I see with that motor mount is you still have to take it out to actually change the pinion. It's not a top screw sliding motor mount like the 6S one is. Adu Racing, their motor mount is a lot shorter on this end, so that will fit in, and that's a top screw-in one, and that's a sliding one, and that will fit as well. So there is options out there, but I would have liked to have seen Corally put a sliding motor mount in this straight away. Just make it a lot easier, you know, to change the pinion on this car. You have to take out 2 screws from underneath to get the motor mount unscrewed. You have to take the top screws out here, remove the cage over, and then take the whole thing out just to change your pinion. It's a lot of work to do to change your pinion. Sliding motor mount with 2 screws from the top. Again, if it's aimed at a beginner, then that's making it a lot harder for them to actually get into it to change the pinion in the first place. It's not impossible. I've worked on cars that are harder, but you know, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws just to get your motor out to change the pinion. Then you've got another 2 screws to take the motor mount out, and then you've obviously got to change your pinion as well. So it's kind of like 12, 13 screws all in all. So yeah, that's a kind of a big negative for me on this car. I just think they should have made it easier. Getting into the centre diff is absolutely fine. You know, you normally with most cars, you're going to have to take off the centre brace anyway, but you don't have to take it off fully. You just take off the outer screws, fill those up, and then you've got your 4 screws in the top of here, pop that off, and you can get into your centre diff pretty easily. It's just obviously to change your pinion. That's a lot of screws to do that. I'm going to mention this now. This isn't my negative. From my personal opinion of this car, from my personal use and from my experience with these tyres, they're not a negative for me. A lot of people are saying these tyres are negative. I use these, as I mentioned in the last video, on my Asuga. Obviously, I used them on the Kagama 4. I've got them on here. These tyres just need time to bed in. All I'd say to you is if you don't like these tyres out of the box, just give them a chance. The more you use it, they will soften up. and then they do really grip well, and they will balloon a little bit more as well. So yeah, I just say give them a chance. It's not a negative for me, but I know it is for a lot of people, so I just wanted to mention that. And the other negative thing as well that a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people have said, is the CVD pins popping out. Now, I've never had this issue. I didn't have this issue on the Kagama 4. So with this car, straight away, I've actually put heat shrink around them just to protect them, just in case, especially when I ran it on 6S. And obviously, I've had no issues with this car. Now, I've not had any issues with my Asuga or my Kagama 6S. Now, my Kagama 6S is actually not running the true Kagama axles. It's got my old Shogun axles in it, which are about 4 years old, and they're still absolutely fine. Now, the difference between the Asuga, the old axles from the Shogun, from the original Kronos, from the Morocco, from the original Punisher, the short axles, because they're not using the wide hubs. This car here, the Kagama 4 and the Kagama 6S, which is all the cars that people are saying they're having issues with pins in, are all using the wide hubs with the long axles. Is that the issue? I'm not sure, but like I say, I've never had an issue with any of my other 6S trucks, and my Kagama 6S, like I say, was made up from originally Shogun, then I made it into a Kronos, then I turned it into a Kagama, but I'm using the extended wheel hexes and still just the normal HD hubs, not the wide hubs. So is that what the issue is? Is it the wide hubs because of the longer axles, more centrifugal force? The way to overcome it though, you can use the heat shrink, is what I tend to do on all my 6S rigs anyway from Corelli, is I thicken up the centre diff. I put 500,000 weight in there with 1/2 to 1 earplug, and then I go around, usually around 70,000 in the front, and usually around 50,000 in the rear, and that does kind of help. It makes the front wheels a little less, the front wheels spin a little bit less when you put thicker diff, when you thicken up the centre diff. It's going to wheelie a little bit more, and it's better for jumping and stunts. So, and it's like I say, it stops the actual front wheels spinning as fast, which should hopefully help with those pins flying out. But I just wanted to mention that it's not a negative for me because I've not had that issue with it, but obviously some people have. As far as toughness with this car, I think it's really tough. Kagama 4, I took to a BMX track, which is the same platform. Took it to the skate park, proper bashed it hard. I've bashed this one hard, sent it off some big jumps, I've crashed it. And the only thing I broke is one body mount, the front body mount, and that was kind of 20-30 foot in the air, landed right on its roof, and broke the actual body mount. But it didn't break the body. And I just want to mention the body as well, how absolutely impressed with this body I am. There's not a dint on it, there's not a crack on it, it's held up really well. Like I said on the last video, the only place that it's actually starting to go, you probably want to put a little bit of tape or Gorilla tape on this. I mean, a lot of people, obviously fully protect the inside of their bodies. I tend not to because it just makes them heavier. But yeah, this body is holding up really well. Yeah, very impressed with this body. But yeah, as far as durability, I've had no issues at all. I'm not saying you won't break things. You're going to break things like arms if you crash badly. The chassis held up really well. This chassis feels like it's really strong. It's 3mm. It's 6061 T6 grade aluminium. So yeah, it's not 7075, but T6 grade means that it is a really good grade of aluminium, and I know Corelli use good metals. The shocks I've been really impressed with. Again, some people will say, these need upgrading to the 6S ones. I really like these shocks. I like it that they've got the aluminium caps on them, which is the area where plastic shocks usually go. They are adjustable. They do feel a little bit springy and a little bit hard out of the box, but again, they soften up over time. Again, things like that, just give them a chance. I noticed when I was running it last, it wasn't rebounding nowhere near as much as what it was when I first got it. So, you just have to give the springs a bit of time to soften up a little bit. The wing, really impressed with. Very durable. Landed on that hard a few times. No issues at all. The wing mount has stayed really, really well. The wheelie bar, I'm not sure about. I suppose it protects the back end a little bit. You're not really going to need the wheelie bar unless you are going to put it on 6S or, put a 17 tooth pinion in. Even then, because you lose the torque when you put the 17 tooth pinion in. You're probably not going to get that wheelie action. And again, that's going back to really believe that there should be a sliding motor mount, because at least then you can maybe run like a 14 tooth or a 16 tooth rather than just 13, 15 or 17. 16 tooth might be a nice pinion for a lot of people. Another area where I know for a fact after probably about 20, 30 battery packs through this, or if you only run it once a month, every in 6 months time, you are going to notice that your drive cups are going to start eating away a little bit. These are the old drive cups. I'd like to see Corally just put the sprung steel ones on all their cars, regardless if it's a budget car or not. Again, I know this is a budget car and it is aimed at beginners, and the price here in the UK, this is over £100 cheaper than the Armour 4S is. It's over £200 cheaper than the Traxxas 4S. It's about the same price as the PD Racing here in the UK, which is our version of the Red Cat. That retails at £309, this retails at £359. So this car is on par with the Red Cat. Now again, in the US, I know the price is going to be completely different. The Red Cat's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than this. The Armours are probably going to be a little bit more expensive, same as the Traxxas. But here in UK and Europe, the Corallis are a lot cheaper than the Armour and Traxxas, and about the same price as Red Cat or PD Racing as we call them here in the UK. The electronics on this car, especially the ESC 120 amp, it's a Curon 135, the Curon 752 motor 2150, great combination. Again, some people will say, well, it'd been better maybe with a 3000 kV motor, so you'd have got a little bit more speed. Fair enough. But again, if you gear this right, that motor is a very good motor. Never had any issues with this motor ESC combo, and it's one of the best combos you get in an RTR, in my opinion. The servo, again, is a very good servo. It's pretty quick enough. You can run it at 7.4 volts, metal geared, very decent servo. The handset, a lot of people don't like this, and I quite like it. It's great for one-handed driving. It feels all right. It doesn't feel plasticky. The trigger on it action is absolutely fine. You've got foam in your steering wheel. You've got all your buttons that you need to change stuff. You can pass it to somebody, put it down to 50%. It's, it does its job, and I've never had any issues with this. Yes, I prefer to run my Sanwa on most of my cars, but that's just my personal preference. But I don't think it's a bad receiver transmitter combo for an RTR at all. The design of this car, apart from how hard it is to change the pinion, but the way the chassis brace works and the way that the shock mounts and the diff cases are all tied into each other makes this car really strong and really durable, and I really like the design of that, and I think it's a tough little car. It really is. The drivetrain, including the centre diff, the front diff and rear diff, obviously oil filled. The centre diff is exactly where it's meant to be, in the centre. The gears inside the diffs are 6S gears, the actual Spider gears. Obviously the crown and the pinions are not the same as what you get on the 6S, but that's an easy upgrade, and that's a great thing about this car. All these parts on it are upgradable to 6S, so you can, potentially run this 6S if you want. As I showed you in my last video, takes it no problem at all, and that's not with any upgrades to this car. Again, as I've said, if you really want to run this 6S, you do want to upgrade those drive cups, the ring and pinions, and then you should be all good to go. The tyres, again, you might want to upgrade if you're running it on 6S with a larger pinion than 13 tooth, as they will start to kind of unglue a little bit. They're only designed for 4S. Just bear that in mind. But I think for me, one of the biggest selling points about this car, and one of the things I love about it, is just the way it looks. Corally, I've got it spot on with this car. It just looks absolutely awesome. I think it looks aggressive. I think it just looks more like a stadium truck to me. And I just think that the way the wing's very low on the body, and the attention to detail on this body is fantastic. The plastic skids on the top work really, really well, and I just think it looks really, really cool. The body mount system is really good. And to be honest with you, yes, some companies are going with the clipless systems. I kind of prefer this style, especially when it's done like Corally have done it with these big, beefy posts. For me, clipless body is fantastic. You know, it makes life a little bit easier, but you know, you're 20-30 meters away from your car and you know, you land it and then the body pops off and you've got to stop, you've got to go and get it. And I know that doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. You know, your body's not going to suddenly fall off on this. So for me, you know, if this car had cost extra because it had been a clipless body, then, you know, that might put me off. Like I say, this car in the UK is a very, very well priced car. And you know, having clips on does not bother me at all. It's not a reason why I would buy or not buy a car if it had a clipless body system on it. It really wouldn't. And in some ways, it's kind of putting me off some other cars if they've got a clipless body system, because how long is that going to last? You know, it's a lot more expensive to replace if the body gets damaged. So, you know, there's pros and cons for both, and some people prefer the clipless, some people prefer the old style. But for me, it doesn't make the car run any better or any worse having a clipless body. So yeah, my overall thoughts on this car is, yeah, there's a few bits that could be improved. There's a lot of things that Corally have got right, and I do think it's an awesome 4S basher. I really enjoyed running it. I've had no major issues, like I say, no major breakages, and I have, you know, proper bashed this. And I'll show you some footage at the end of this video. If you want to hang about and look at that footage, then please do so, and you can see how tough this actual car is. I have sent it quite a few times. But yeah, do I recommend this car? Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic car, and I think Corally are underestimated how good their cars are. You know, for the price they roll their cars out and for what you get for your money, I think they're absolutely awesome. And I'm not a Corally fanboy, you know, I like cars because I like them. If you go back through my channel, I've had Armours, I've had Traxxuses, I've had Corallys, I've had FTX, I've had lots of different cars, all purchased with my own money. You know, these cars don't get sent to me for free. I pay money for the cars that I receive. So, you know, what I'm saying to you is, if there was something majorly wrong with this car, I would let you know. But for me, there isn't. Yes, there's little bits and bats which some people won't like. But at the end of the day, no RC car is perfect. And all RC cars will break at some point if you bash them, and if you jump them, and if you're landing correctly. That is part of the hobby. And then the fun part of the hobby is actually fixing it. And, you know, plastic parts of these cars, regardless if it's Corally, if it's Armour, even Traxxus, the parts themselves are pretty cheap, really. And, you know, I enjoy wrenching on them. I know not everybody does, but I do. So yeah, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Put down in the comments. You know, I always love to hear what people's experiences are with these cars. Some people have really positive experiences, some people won't, but that's life. And, you know, life's never as simple as that, is it? Don't forget to put them thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, really do appreciate subscriptions. It doesn't cost anything and it does really help the channel. And if you like this video, then watch one of these videos right here. And like I say, if you want to stay around, then I'm going to put some footage of this car doing some awesome jumps. Thank you very much for watching. Happy RCing.